Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and to some people's surprise, Xbox just held a showcase to open up the week with. This has been going a little bit under the radar, but that's also why you have me. I got your back because we're going to talk about 10 different Game Pass games that they revealed at their ID at Xbox showcase. Now, this does include at least a few games that I think fans are going to really enjoy. Now, also stick around for some PlayStation news, as a highly rumored remaster seems to be inbound for an official announcement. Before we get started, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. You all are absolutely awesome for what you do, and just thank you so very much. Let's get right into things, though, starting off with this year's biggest release thus far being Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm expecting some just absolutely massive launch numbers later this week, and especially now that its reviews are raving about its quality. Over on Metacritic, it currently has a 90 overall score with 74 total reviews. That means it's our first high-profile 90 rating of the year, so big congrats to Capcom. It sounds like they did yet another masterful job, as several critics describe it as the biggest and the best entry for the franchise yet. In fact, it's currently tied with Monster Hunter Worlds as the best rated in the entire series. But do keep in mind that that could change as more reviews roll in. One thing that I have heard mentioned, though, is that its main campaign is a little bit on the easier side of things. And while that might make it more accessible to newcomers, I will be curious to see how veterans of the series reacts to that, considering Monster Hunter is a little bit more on the hardcore side of the equation with all of its grinding. To be fair, though, a lot of what makes it so hardcore in the first place is its in-game content. So I definitely want to see how fans react when it releases, but so far, Monster Hunter Wilds seems to be another stellar release from Capcom. Now, speaking of beloved franchises, fans have become even more convinced that Atlus is quietly remaking Persona 4. That's because singer Shihoko Hirata, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but she's best known for her work on Persona 4, and she revealed that she's recording for an unannounced game. Now, okay, that doesn't 100% mean that it's for Persona 4 specifically. Technically, it could really be for anything. But Rudiger on Twitter noticed that the photo that she included with her reveal was of the same studio that worked on Persona 5 Strikers. Even more so is that she liked several comments that referenced none other than Persona 4. So, I mean, again, nothing's necessarily confirmed per se, but it seems like there's a lot of coincidences, which, I mean, if this is true, I don't think anybody will be too surprised. Obviously, Persona 3 Reload was extremely successful for Atlus, so a Persona 4 remake really seems to be a no-brainer for them. In some ways, you could actually argue that Persona 4 is the best in the series. Yes, Persona 5 is what popularized the series, and it improved on things like the dungeon formula, but Persona 4 arguably has the better story, setting, and characters. Personally, Persona 4 is actually my favorite in the series, and in all truth, just one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. So I think there's a lot of reason to be incredibly excited about a potential remake. With the rise of Persona, more people could soon see just how truly amazing Persona 4 is. Oh, and we also got a pretty major leak for Assassin's Creed Shadows. Apparently some retail copies are out in the wild now, which isn't exactly an ideal situation. I mean, a lot of times when a game leaks early, it's like a week or a few days ahead of its release. But that's not the situation here. Shadows is still almost a month away from its official release, and because early copies are out in the wild already, that means there's videos, images, and just all kinds of details making their way online. Now, according to one person over on Reddit, these copies going around are of an older build of the game, so they don't completely speak to the final release. But the truly important thing to understand here is that if you're somebody who's interested in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and if you're somebody that worries about spoilers or anything like that, yeah, I'd recommend to steer clear of any kind of Assassin's Creed discussion online for the next month or so. I mean, just considering how controversial Shadows has been, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see a lot of spoilers here in the coming weeks. Okay, so let's go talk about this ID at Xbox showcase, and yeah, there's a lot to go over here. They actually showcased 22 different games, including Lies of P Overture. That is still one of the best new IP from this generation. It sounds like it's going to get even better with this new DLC. It's looking really good. And they also gave us an updated look for Radaton. Now, that's the Patapon spiritual successor, and, if you like that series, I think Radaton looks pretty good. I'm happy about how it's shaping up thus far, and hopefully it'll give you Patapon fans out there a lot of joy when it eventually releases. Their big focus for the day, though, clearly was on Xbox Game Pass. They revealed 10 new Game Pass titles. So we're going to go over each one of those, and we might as well go and start off with the game that you can play right now. Bing Balatro. Yeah, people have been going crazy over this game since last year. It won several awards, and yeah, you might think it's just another card game. Why all the excitement? But that's the beauty of something like Game Pass. Game Pass has such a way of introducing people to games that they may not have otherwise tried. And Balatro is a perfect game for that. Much like Vampire Survivors, it might not be much to look at, but I think Balatro is going to win a lot of people over through its Game Pass introduction. So go check it out. It's available as we speak, which also includes new cards from Fallout, Civilization, Assassin's Creed, Bugsnax, and various other known IP. They also revealed a look at Moonlighters 2. Now, this is a sequel to the darling indie hit that released back in 2018. Now, if you're unaware of what that game is, it's essentially a roguelite that mixes in shopkeeper elements. It's about a merchant that fights in dungeons to loot all kinds of different items, and then he sells said items in his shop. It's an addictive gameplay loop, and it seems like they're going to go even bigger with the sequel for its undefined 2025 launch. You'll notice that it has a 3D art style this time around, which, I mean, I don't know. I like the 2D sprites myself for the previous game, but the gameplay is the star of the show, and we'll see how that turns out later this year. Revenge of the Savage Planet also got its release date trailer, which now includes a Day 1 Game Pass launch. It'll be available on May 8th, and I actually thought the first game was pretty good. I reviewed it years ago, and it's kind of like a 3D Metroidvania with an over-the-top, colorful vibe to it. It's got a very tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, but it is a game that stands out for its cooperative features. So if you have a friend to play with, if you both have something like Game Pass, then this might be one of the better games to keep on your radar. The downhill biking game, Descenders, is also getting a sequel, and just like the previous game, it's launching directly into Game Pass on April 9th. Clearly, that relationship worked out for them, and Descenders Next looks even better because it now includes a variety of extreme sports. Now you can go from the Rocky Mountains with bikes and boards all the way to the snowlands of snowboarding. I mean, the first game was already fun as is, but I think this one looks even better just because of how expanded it is. I mean, I'll say this much though, if you like extreme sports and if you have something like Game Pass, it sounds like it's going to be a fun year with the rumored Tony Hawk 3+4 remake, and now with Descenders Next as well. And speaking of bikes, this was kind of a theme at ID at Xbox. Somebody must really like bikes over there or something, because they also snagged Tanuki Pon's Summer. Now, this is a Japanese-developed life sim. It's always notable when Xbox goes out and gets these Japanese games, but this one is quite a bit different than what you might expect. It's got that cozy vibe to it, and there seems to be a lot of different mini-games. I mean, it's kind of a cute-looking game, and it'll be out sometime in late 2025. Then there was also a side-scrolling bike riding party game by the name of Ultimate Sheep Raccoon. I actually think that's a terrible name, but, whatever, I digress. It does have an 8-player mode, and it's supposed to be somewhat chaotic. So, if anything else, it could end up being a fun game to try if you have some people to play with. However, we don't yet have a release date. Now, this next one, though, this one grabbed my attention. This is Echo Weaver, which they're describing as a Metroid Brainia, and the reason that this one has my attention is because apparently it was inspired by Outer Wilds, which is an amazing game to piece together. It's all about a mysterious time loop, and you'll slowly unravel its story over time, and apparently Echo Weaver is attempting to do something similar with its own time loop take. However, we don't have a release date just yet, but I thought it was definitely one of the more interesting reveals that they showcased. Now, for you puzzle fans out there, though, Blue Prince will be available on April 10th. I'm not really sure what to make of its trailer, but they describe it as a truly unique experience that combines exploration, puzzles, map making, and card game systems to create a game that we've truly never seen before. They said that you solve the mysteries of Mount Holly Manor by literally piecing its rooms together and solving mysteries hidden throughout the house that you build as a result. So, I mean, if that sounds interesting to you, again, it will be available on April 10th. Now, Buckshot Roulette is also heading over to Game Pass. Now, this is actually a very, very popular game over on Steam. It currently has 77,000 reviews that are overwhelmingly positive. It's basically described as more of a chaotic version of Russian roulette. That's a fun game to play with your friends. So definitely don't sleep on this one. It might be a lot better than what you think it is. And then lastly, Tempopo was revealed. Now, this is a new rhythm puzzle game from the team behind Unpacking. I mean, that was a very different type of puzzle game, but people absolutely adored it. So, I mean, they definitely have a pedigree, and I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see how this one shapes up when it releases on April 17th. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Captain Toad, but more as a rhythm game. There you go, though. 10 new Game Pass games to look forward to. If you're interested in any of these, let me know which one you're the most excited about in the comments below. Now, one more thing before we go, because God of War Remastered is back in the news once again. Now, we originally heard about this late last year as it was claimed that a God of War Remaster would be revealed to honor its 20th anniversary, which is honestly very hard for me to believe. It's been 20 years. That's crazy. However, some people kind of gave up hope that this would actually happen when Sony didn't announce it at their recent State of Play. But now, according to Jeff Grubb, its announcement may actually happen after all, and it will be closer to God of War's original PS2 release date, which was on March 22nd. So, if this rumor is actually true, we now have a timeline to pay attention to. This very well could happen next month in March, and I will say that I think that this game makes a lot of sense for Sony to remaster. It makes a whole lot more sense than something like Days Gone and, Horizon Zero Dawn. This one actually makes sense. God of War is one of the most popular PS2 games, and it doesn't have a native version on the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5. It, however, does get a lot of attention on their cloud streaming service, so a native updated version would likely be very successful for them. I think my only real concern about a remaster is just more on the side of censorship. Just kind of knowing how modern day game companies work. I could very well see them causing a big controversy, just depending on how they handle its more mature scenes. So we'll see what they decide with all that, but either way, I'll definitely be glad to see an updated version of God of War if this turns out to be true. I'm crossing my fingers because this is an all-time great for a reason, and it'll be nice to return to God of War's roots after all of these years. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.